Welcome to the Wired for Success podcast, your show for ambitious, mission-driven entrepreneurs who understand that there's more to entrepreneurship than finding the latest flash-in-the-pan strategies, who understand that in order to build your empire, you need a solid foundation. I wholeheartedly believe that entrepreneurship is the biggest self-development journey you can be on, and it's my mission to help you make that journey easier. I help you transition from a struggling, overwhelmed, and overworked entrepreneur to the relaxed and confident CEO and conscious creator of your dream life that you are meant to be. In this show, I bring together the very best from science, self-development, and entrepreneurship to set you up for sustainable success. I share my own experiences and knowledge as a molecular biologist and mindset coach for high-achieving entrepreneurs, and I interview other top scientists, coaches, and entrepreneurs so that you can get all the expert tips and strategies to help you trust yourself more, worry less, make better decisions, be more productive, stay focused and organized, and build your legacy. Hi, I'm Claudia Garbutt, the scientist and mindset coach behind the show, and you're listening to the Wired for Success podcast. Hey everyone, and welcome back to a new episode of the Wired for Success podcast. Today, I have a rather unusual guest for all you ambitious and mission-driven entrepreneurs out there. Today, I'm talking with a 17-year-old rising social entrepreneur and environmental thought leader, Elliot Connor, who's the founder and CEO of Human Nature Projects, an international environmental charity supporting volunteers across 104 countries. He's a TED speaker, author, podcast host, and filmmaker. He's been awarded the Samsung 2020 Eco Hero Award, Young Citizen of the Year, and Young Landcare Leader titles. And I can't wait to help him spread his message and show you how you can use those ideas to help you build a successful and sustainable business. So welcome, Elliot, and it's so great to have you on my show.
Thank you, Claudia. The pleasure is very much mine. It's a great show you run. So looking forward to having a conversation and hopefully sharing some insights which are valuable to your listeners. Certainly been a wonderful journey for me these past 12 months, starting up this venture of mine. So yeah, it should be fascinating to talk about.
Absolutely. And I believe our listeners can learn a lot from you. So I bet you hear this a lot, but I just wanted to start by saying, wow, and what you have achieved at your young age is nothing short of spectacular. So maybe we can start by exploring how you got started, what was your motivation for creating your charity, and how you managed to turn it into such a huge success in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, well, I think with a question like that, you have to go right back. So you can probably tell from my accent, I'm British. Certainly wasn't born where I am here in Australia. I guess I grew up with part of that in my culture, in my upbringing, that love of nature, bird watching, those long walks in the countryside and such. So yeah, I've always been immersed in the natural world. I kept lots of pets. Raised assassin bugs, stick insects, bearded dragons, you name it. So yeah, that connection with animals has always been part of my life. Even now I'm doing animal caring, so animal rescues here in Sydney. But for me, the catalyst, if you will, that decisive moment came just over a year ago. So it would have been January actually of last year, of 2019. And at the time, I was volunteering at a raptor and hedgehog rehabilitation centre in southern France in midwinter. So, yeah, I'd given up my summer holidays to volunteer at this centre, helping out these injured animals, these rescue cases from the local countryside, which was an amazing opportunity. I loved it there and continued very much to do that in the subsequent years. But yeah, in the long winter nights I spent there, I also happened to be researching the operations of about 200 major environmental NGOs. So for several years before that, I'd been volunteering quite extensively in the space with local organisations primarily, but very much trying to make a difference in any way I could. And I found it very, very challenging to do so. So as a minor, it's obviously much more difficult, much more red tape to get through, much more bureaucracy. But some of my findings from that digging I did showed me that this wasn't just my experience, that it was the case across most of these larger organizations, some of the best funded, some of those large figureheads in the space, that they really, really struggled to engage with volunteers to, I guess, spread their message to the wider community outside of these echo chambers of environmentalism we all operate in. So yeah, Human Nature Projects essentially started as my answer to that issue. I took many more long walks in the countryside, trying to really nut out what the issue was, what I could do to fix it. And yeah, much of the philosophy arose then. But I started Human Nature Projects in June of last year. So yeah, it's been an incredible journey for me in the 12 months since. It's certainly transformed my life.
It's absolutely amazing what you have achieved so far. But I would also like to know what's your long-term vision, and not only for your organization, but also for your entire life. Like, what do you want to achieve in the long run? Where will you be in, say, 10 years from now?
Wow, that's a big question. Yeah. Well, I think very early on, when I went down this path into environmentalism, I was very fortunate actually to receive an invite from a man called Steve Parish, who's probably Australia's foremost photographer, very, very famous, worked 25 years in publishing, published almost every book there is that you might be able to name about wildlife in Australia. So yeah, that was an amazing opportunity. But what he speaks of is a creative life purpose. So having this defining vision, this a mission statement behind everything you do personally and artistically, very much in his case. So yeah, since then I've been very much directing, very much narrowing what I do into the goal of reframing the human relationship with nature. So it's my belief, certainly, that if we can change how we as humans interact with other animals, how we perceive our place on planet Earth, and how we, as a result, go about this traditional development, go about operating this global economy, then I think everything else flows on from that in terms of how we can save the Earth, save the planet. I think it's been shown time and time again that conservation itself thrives off this community model. It's essentially a grassroots movement. That's how environmentalism started. It's quite modern, so 50 odd years old, but very much thrives off these localized projects, localized actions. And the role then of Human Nature Projects is collecting all of those together, grouping them and supporting them, empowering them. And yeah, acting as that universal constant. So combining resources, combining ideas across areas which otherwise wouldn't have been breached. So very much allowing individuals and small networks, so these communities, to thrive within the space where traditionally they may very much have struggled. So yeah, I think that's a really powerful action if we can achieve that, a really powerful goal to work towards. And what we've seen in Human Nature Projects so far with the rapid scaling, with our success only 12 months on, is that it's very much shown itself to be a wonderful standpoint for creating an organization, a charity like this. The structure very much promotes the end goal, this end work of the organization, and has allowed us to thrive in the time since its founding.
That's so cool. I really love that idea of connecting separated charity organizations and bringing it all together, because this reminds me about a talk that I had with a Ukrainian physicist, actually, because he talks about complex systems and how everything, or in human nature, or we as individuals, how we can work together to create so much more, and just like we're more than the sum of the parts if we work together. So that is just this synergy effect that's so cool, and that's so wonderful to create. So what I find so impressive about what you do and about your work is the level of responsibility that you're willing to take on at your age, if I can say so. And I would love to talk about a little bit more about that, about our responsibilities as an entrepreneur, because what I've seen is that you call yourself a social entrepreneur. And for me, that's so interesting, because it implies that you kind of think of entrepreneurship per se as being kind of antisocial. So I just wanted to dig a little deeper here and see if that's how you feel about entrepreneurship.
Yeah, well, isn't that a controversial question? Yeah, I think it's very much mixed, and the same applies to the entire space we're working in. So whether it is these corporates, these organizations, whether it's politics, so some of our world leaders, whether it's even the people themselves, it's very much a mixed bunch we're working with. And no, I don't think that social entrepreneurship necessarily has to be separate from your mainstream business as usual. I think there's still a gap to be filled. So what I've found, and what many others have found in this space, is that there are some great companies that do some wonderful work in terms of promoting and supporting organizations that are working towards a better environment. But that's very much not the accepted baseline. So there's very much a disconnect between this sense of development, so how successful a country is, or how successful a company is, and how successful the environment is. So whether that then translates into these benefits for humans and other animals. So yeah, it's not an easy question to answer, and it very much varies case by case. So in Australia, where I am, we've got the third most threatened species of any country. The US is second, Indonesia's first, I believe. But those three countries, or the first two at least, so Australia and the USA, are very well off. They have some of the largest businesses, some of the largest companies. They could be absolutely rocking it if they tried in environmentalism. But that's simply not the case. So there's many other variables coming into play. And I think ultimately it does stem back to the community, to the people at the heart of it all. If, like myself, you're passionate about nature, passionate about animals, then it will translate into a better world for animals and for people. But that needs to be there. So hence my goal of reconnecting the family tree of life, and bring us closer to nature. And I think that has a really powerful flow-on effect in terms of catalyzing corporates and other entities to be more responsible in environmental terms.
Yes, I love that. And I totally agree about this disconnect that we see a lot. So what I've seen happening a lot is just that as businesses grow and entrepreneurs, they get all wrapped up in chasing the latest strategies and chasing the numbers, they sometimes they lose touch with what inspired them to start their businesses in the first place. And they start to make decisions based on profit and short-term benefit rather than on their values and long-term vision. And I think that's that kind of thinking that creates these systems that reward profit thinking, inequality, and exploitation instead of fostering collaboration, innovation, and sustainability. And on a small scale, this will eventually lead to a decline of these businesses because that's just the way they run these businesses is simply not sustainable over the long run. But on a bigger scale, the impact is even more dramatic because it perpetuates this social inequality, hostility, and the exploitation of nature. So we really need to break those destructive patterns that we have created for ourselves if we want to conserve our planet and our societies for the next generations. Therefore, I think it's so super important to have rising thought leaders like you to turn things around. And by the way, I watched your TED talk, and something you mentioned that really stuck with me were the 4 C's of conservation. So maybe you can talk a little bit about those 4 C's, what they stand for, and why each one of them is so important in your opinion.
Yeah, so the 4 C's of conservation is my way of expressing this belief that traditionally environmental management techniques have been much too narrowly focused on gaining these results, gaining these deliverables in terms of the revival of animal populations. So say if I'm the WWF in India working to save the tigers, then I'll measure success by how many tigers I have living in the reserve,
Right.
by how many fatalities there are, or what have you. What the alternative I'm working towards is where we measure that, but also where we measure it in terms of how we connect with people. So Human Nature Projects is very much people driven, connecting people for the planet in terms of saving the world. So if we can use conservation's 4 C's as that standpoint, then I think that will enable us to integrate people into conservation much better. The 4 C's themselves stand for connection, curiosity, creativity, and collaboration. So very much about integrating people into these equations. So connection is about providing those opportunities for people to immerse themselves in nature, to say in my case, rescue animals, to have that very close bond you develop for these injured animals, caring for them over weeks or months. That's definitely a relationship that forms. And even if you're caring for pets, say if you've got a pet dog or a pet cat, then it's very similar. It's almost always the case that behind every great environmentalist there's an even greater animal. They learn this love of nature at a very early age from being immersed in animal companionship, if it's a dog or if it's something more exotic. So in my case, raising insects on my desk, or raising lizards upstairs. So yeah, that's really important. And I think that starts at that younger age. Curiosity then is following on from that. It's leading into environmental education. So if we can really promote and support to nurture this interest in nature amongst both youth and older people, that's really powerful in terms of in terms of supporting these actions. I recently did some research of about 1,000 members of the public, environmentalists, some, but mostly your everyday Joe, in terms of what they knew about these subjects. So about really some of the basic facts on the status quo of our world's ecosystems. And it was really interesting what came out of it, because people got worse than random chance on the multiple choice. They would have done better if they were guessing it. Or if I gave the test to a bunch of chimpanzees at the zoo. So that's quite extraordinary if you think about it, what that means in terms of the knowledge gap that's out there. Some of those biases, I guess, in the way we think, the flaws in our worldview, which lead to us really misjudging the nature, the natural world in terms of its present state. So yeah, that was fascinating. And I think that very much links back to this need for people to be better educated, to have that basic knowledge in the field, to be able to make the right decisions, to be able to act towards its protection. Then creativity is about finding really innovative solutions. You might have seen in my TED talk, and the example I love to use is biomimicry. So taking nature's blueprints, nature's innovations, evolutionary strategies and applying them to solve human issues. So whether it's designing a new product, redesigning how we operate various systems. So, I mean, I was recently reading that ants can help us in reworking traffic routes, traffic management. So really, really interesting how that can work. Another fascinating case is slime mold. So
What is it?
mindless organism, no brain, tiny cells, which then operate together as these cohesive wholes. But looks rather like something you'd find on moldy bread, or something if you left some cheese out in the sun too long, whatever it might be. But yeah, scientists have been doing some really fascinating research on these creatures and found that they have an extraordinary kind of community intelligence. So there's one study in which they managed to map out, I think it was the Japanese railway system. They were set this challenge where you have like food points representing where the population centers are. So like effectively modeling the scenario. And it arrived very, very rapidly at this most efficient route. So how it had been designed by the human engineers at the time, or possibly more efficient still. So there's plenty we can learn from all sorts of animals, all sorts of organisms, and being able to accept that, to work with nature as opposed to against it, is an important stepping stone. But then also, if we can have the courage to think outside the box, to perhaps aim for some more ambitious goals. So one I really enjoy promoting, one I think could make a difference, is the Nature Needs Half campaign. So that's quite famous in the environmental space, but advocating for the need to protect half of the world's lands and oceans by 2050. So if we can set aside half of the earth effectively for the benefit of biodiversity, then that would be really, really powerful. I think it guarantees or safeguards about 85% of the animal species in terms of preventing extinction, and many are going that way. So we do need to be ambitious with our goals, and creativity acts as that enabler for delivering them. And then the final one is simply that collaboration. So that's very much what Human Nature Projects is doing, what I'm trying to do, working across dozens of organizations. I think it's really, really important to be able to share best practices, to share ideas, support each other, even across these disparate communities. So breaking out, I guess, of this environmental bubble we might operate in, and yeah, trying to engage as many stakeholders as possible. I think the real gems in environmental management come from when we do work outside of our comfort zones, if you will. The WWF is famous for being able to work with corporate interests, so to connect the dots in that realm. But then if we could work with, say, schools as well, so working with young people, and increasingly this youth space and environmentalism is being recognised as being integrated into the whole. But if we can achieve that more wholly, then that will be brilliant. And the same applies for all sorts of different groupings. So if we can enable governments to speak to each other, share some of their best ideas there. I was recently reading that New Zealand have added a clause to their constitution, which is recognising the sentience of other animals. So recognising that they have this independent mind, this ability to think, feel, and everything that entails, which is really quite powerful if you think about it in terms of giving nature this voice, giving nature rights. But yeah, I think that's the final keystone, if you will, in the whole equation. If we can collaborate, if we can build these networks, and I think if we can achieve that, if we can achieve conservation's 4 Cs, then it will be a step in the right direction.
I love that. I really love this whole concept of integrating and bringing everything together to form a whole, like in entirety, or make it all whole again. So it's bringing separate things together. And what I really love about these 4 C's is that when you think about it, you can also translate this concept and use it for building better businesses. So here's how I see it. So connection for me is being connected to your vision. And it's super important to stay connected to that vision, because it helps you stay on track and make sure that we don't stray from that path, like we talked about before. And curiosity is really about asking better questions and being willing to see things from a different angle to help us get unstuck and find better ways to do the things that we are doing. Then creativity is all about opening your eyes to all the new possibilities and thinking outside the box, as you said, and always looking for ways to improve, which is so key to adapting to new situations and overcoming obstacles. And last but not least, collaboration is such a wonderful and easy way to create these synergy effects, to bring things and people together. And we don't have to do everything alone. And I really believe that we are so much stronger together. And after all, humans are just social animals, right?
Yes.
We are. So when you describe yourself as a social entrepreneur, do you use those 4 C's as a basis for running your business too?
I very much so. Yeah, I think it all has to link back to that if we're to create these sustainable, these supportive communities in the human nature projects space, but across all the work I do. I think it's very, very important to integrate people into these discussions. And I think the beauty of the whole situation is that we work in such a diverse field. So I think one of the tremendous benefits of the 4 C's is in allowing these disparate viewpoints, these differing perspectives to come into the discussion, come into any meetings you might have, come into the boardroom, say, and being able to really inspire to add that extra momentum to any operations you might be working on. So that's something I found through human nature projects, and is essentially the lifeblood of this space we're working in.
That's so great. And as someone who is aspiring to become a great leader, what qualities do you think every great leader needs?
Ooh. Yeah, well, I think before I answer that question, I think the most important thing about being a great leader is you just have to be yourself. I've found that I'm an introvert. I wouldn't have expected myself to be where I am now. Certainly, I wouldn't have dreamed of it 12 months ago, 18 months ago. It's not a position I could have stepped into easily by any means. But yeah, I've found that being able to express myself, my vision, very clearly, very concisely is that key. Being able to then, I guess, convert people, so to make them see the beauty in this idea. Yeah, you have to be yourself, but you also have to be clear about who you are. So if I'm working on human nature projects, I need to know what the ideal is, what the goals I'm working towards are for the next 12 months, for the next 10 years, if you will. I think that it very much comes down to this community building idea. So if I can bring people over to this cause, if I can bring people to my way of seeing, then I think everything else follows. That's what leadership is, being able to essentially inspire others, impact others' lives in that very direct way.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you on that one. So authenticity is so important, but it also takes a lot of vulnerability and courage to get there. So for me, those two things, like vulnerability, which is a complicated word, and courage, they are really not separate things, though they are more like two sides of the same coin. So you can't have one without the other, because being vulnerable requires courage, and courage requires being vulnerable and showing up as yourself and being there and being willing to experience fear and showing up nonetheless. So you already said it or talked about it a little bit, that you're an introvert, and I am too. So as same as you, I never imagined myself being in that space that I'm in right now. And I've always found it very difficult to just put myself out there in the spotlight because of all these fears that come up, like the fear of failure, the fear of judgment and rejection that probably most of us go through when we start on our journey. So how do you handle the pressure of putting yourself out there and fighting for your cause?
Oh, yeah. I think it comes down to a few factors. So obviously I'm very passionate about what I do. You have to be to work in the space. It's long hours. There's limited successes. So you very much have to celebrate each one. I've actually developed a habit, which I find really handy, of whenever a piece of positive news comes through, just doing like a fist pump, something really simple and physical, to recognize that, because otherwise it can just fly over the head, pass through the brain without being properly acknowledged. So yeah, really having that sense of positive reinforcement. And the second part then is being able to share that with others. So I'm constantly inspired by the other passionate, like-minded young people I speak to across the world. So be it a dozen countries a day, having that chance to share ideas with all sorts of people and really revel in that experience is one that very much keeps me going, adds to my drive, to that inspiration. But I think it all comes down to working in a space that you love, working for a cause that you're passionate for. And that's, I guess, a tremendous benefit of social entrepreneurship. You're doing it because you believe in it. And I think that has to be the case with business too. But yeah, for me, it comes down to the people and to the animals. You need to have both in the equation to carry on going.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Just having this big vision that pulls you forward and takes you across this, like it gets you out of your comfort zone and it gets you into your, what I like to call the growth zone, where you might still feel terrified, but you're willing to take the risk and you're willing to take the next step just because that cause that you're fighting for is much bigger than yourself. I really like that. So before we end this episode, can you please tell our listeners what's the best way to connect with you if they want to learn more about you and about your work, and when they want to support you, because I'm sure they will.
Yes, so you can find out more about my work on my website, which is just elliotconnor.com. So that's ELLIOTCONNOR.com. Or you can find out more about Human Nature Projects at humanNatureProjects.org. So really, really simple. But if you head over to either of those websites, then yeah, definitely take a look. There's some interesting things up there. On my website, you can take that quiz, which I showed in my TEDx video. You might have seen, but test your memory against the chimps, because I bet you won't be able to beat the chimp. There's some really interesting things you can get stuck into. So head across and check out those two websites.
Perfect. So thank you so much for this wonderful interview, Elliot. I wish you all the best for your journey, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more about all the amazing things that I already know that you will be doing in the future. So it's been wonderful having you.
Thank you, Claudia. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.
Take care. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Wired for Success podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, please take a sec to rate and review my show. It would mean the world to me because you would help me reach more entrepreneurs like yourself who would love this show. If you'd like to learn more about creating a widely successful business without sacrificing your health, relationships, or sanity, make sure to stick around and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. And if you think, heck yes, I want to listen to each and every one of these amazing episodes, but my day just doesn't have enough hours, well, if that's you, I have something special for you. To help me spread the word about this podcast, I've created a contest and I'm giving away some super cool prizes for those of you who take a sec to subscribe, rate, and review the show. And one of the amazing prizes that you can win is to watch me create my brand new Get Your Life Back Productivity Powerhouse course that teaches entrepreneurs how to win back 1 to 2 hours of precious time each day so that they can do all the things they love. I'll later sell that course for 997 euros, but as a thank you for supporting my podcast launch, you'll get to watch as I create it for free. And just like that, you will have enough time to listen to each and every Wired for Success episode. Woohoo! To find out more about the contest and the other amazing prizes, go to www.wiredforsuccess.solutions/launch-contest. See you next time.